Welcome back, honors. All right, so my E period, remember, you have this flip. Don't forget, all right? So make sure you get it down. I know that I could have posted over the weekend, but I figured I'd give you the weekend off. Super Bowl, big day, right? Monday night, bang a short flip out, call it a day, get into the next thing. Let's go, all right? G period, this is your regular flip that you were going to have regardless, but let's get after it. We got a test coming up next week. I will let you know the dates of that specifically because I got to double check. I think we have like a couple shortened period days like here or there, right? So we got to make sure that we're all like squared away and know exactly when this is going to be, all right? So let's get into it. So we talked about in class how like Spain is going to go through what you would call like a golden age, right? During their growth of their colonies and the massive amounts of gold and sugarcane and silver, bullion, and all this other stuff coming in from their colonies and other areas. So they're going to have a massive golden age. And we talked about like Greco and Velasquez being very, very famous painters. We talked about, Cervantes writing Don Quixote, right? Because during golden ages, typically, you know, your art is produced at a greater length, at greater depth, at greater moments, at greater everything, right? Just like the Renaissance was, just like how that was tied directly to economics. But the English Armada happened around 1588, right? So in following did I say the English Armada? I should call it the English Armada because they won. All right, so, but it's actually the Spanish Armada, right? The Spanish end up losing a massive fight to the, the English, right? Who only had 34 ships to the Spanish 130 Spanish galleons, which were literally like the size of two of the English vessels in the first place. But, you know, Sir Francis Drake being all savvy and piratey and whatnot. Privateer, as Elizabeth calls him. Being so savvy and throwing fire ships at him. And then also the Spanish just having bad luck on the backside of Ireland, getting in storms and stuff, are going to lead to them having a massive defeat. There's going to be another Spanish Armada later. It's not necessarily that important. It's Philip's weak attempt at trying to conquer some new land because he knows England is supporting other people. Those other people happen to be the Dutch, all right? So because here's the thing. Spain is tremendously weakened going into the 1600s, right? So a lot of y'all are like, man, Spain controlled North and South America. They controlled like parts of the triangle trade. They controlled, like they were the wealthiest country in the world. How come they're not in any of the world wars? How come in World War II, what's his name? Franco's got a civil war going on and Spain's not involved. How come? Blah, blah, blah. All valid questions. But a lot of it has to do with the fact that you can jot this down somewhere. Spain got too big, too wealthy, too fast. All right? So, like, because they grew in wealth so greatly, all right? They got so wealthy so quickly. And that's going to cause inflation, prices to rise on certain items, and then also these pesky little people called the Dutch showed up, right? So now, let's go ahead and get out the two easier ones out of the way, all right? So inflation is going to be one of the biggest causes, okay? So inflation, or as in their money is losing value. So something you got to understand is like due to the influx of gold and silver coming into Spain, and then that trickling out into the society of Spain, people now have more money in this extremely prosperous country, which drove the price of Spanish goods up, right? So now that Spanish goods cost more because proprietors and entrepreneurs, capitalism, actually know that Spanish people have more money, they're going to start charging more for it, causing inflation. So the Spanish currency went drastically down, right? So like the value of it went way down. Even though it was now like technically worth just as much as any other money because it was actually paid or made using gold and silver from the colonies and whatnot, it did drive up the cost of things, right? So that's going to, let me double check something. All right, oh yeah, cool. Speaking of that, stuff is also just going to grow way more expensive, mainly because there are no Jews or Muslims left in Spain because of this thing called the Reconquista. All right, so the Reconquista was under Isabella and Ferdinand when they forced the exile or conversion of Muslims and Jewish communities in Spain. So this drastically affected their economy because the Muslim kingdoms brought trade and a lot of different other resources to Spain that they could use to stay wealthy. And the Jewish community brought a lot of different resources such as like lawyers' offices, doctors, medical fields, dentistry, loan officers, like money lending, things like that. So without them now a part of the society, Spanish goods are going to become much more expensive, but lower quality. All right, so that made Spanish people look to countries like, focus on what I'm saying, think about this. Instead of buying goods from Spain that are now too expensive, you might buy things from France, or you might buy things from England, or you might buy things from North Africa, right? So Spain's economy is just going to hit the tank, right? Like due to the massive influx of gold. But then, of course, also the Dutch, all right? So the Dutch started a war, right? So and that war is called the, jot this down, 80 Years' War. Not to be confused with the 30 Years' War. It's wildly different. All right, so under Philip II's rule in the late 1580s, the Dutch are going to have a massive revolt at trying to gain their independence, right? So the 80 Years' War is also known as the Dutch War of Independence. Hey, Alexa, what years did the 80 Years' War last?
80 Years' War was from 1566 to 1648. Did that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. So from 1566 to 1548, the Dutch began a revolt, right? And this 80-year-long war resulted in massive debt for the Spanish, right? And the Dutch are actually going to, revolted against Spain. Sorry, this is a very confusing sentence. The Dutch, with the help of the English, revolted against Spain, right? Causing massive debt, okay? Because that's another reason why he wanted to do the Armada in 1588 and all this other stuff. So the Dutch are eventually going to break away and create their own country, the Netherlands, and then also known as the Low Countries by many. And then, of course, they're going to go through their own golden age where they start the East India Company and they make tons and tons of moolah. All right, so anyway, they're also super Calvinists at the time. Now, anyway, so as we already know, the late 1600s and going into the 17th century was known as a time of crisis, right? Because you got things like the English Civil War going on, the Spanish Armada, the wars of religion, right? Climate changes and stuff like that. So going straight into it where we were pretty much leaving off, it's a crisis for everyone. Because some of y'all are probably immediately asking yourself, you're like, oh, so why am I looking at this really janky Google Slides presentation that Mr. Terry probably made 85 years ago? It's because I haven't made it into a new one yet. Just bear with me. I'm going to be working on it tonight, trying to convert it over to a Prezi and make it even better so I can send you one link for this test. But the biggest thing is we just talked about Philip II. He's going to lose the Netherlands. He's going to lose the Spanish Armada to the English, right? And so a lot of y'all are probably thinking oh man, England must have been killing the game probably then after that. If they won the Spanish Armada, then they probably were massively wealthy and everybody was doing great and blah, 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 blah. Not so much, all right? So they actually end up going through a civil war, right? Where the parliament ends up triumphing in England, okay? So this is the English response to absolutism, okay? So please do not write anything unless I tell you to do so, okay? Because this presentation is terrible, all right? But this part's not that bad. So let's go ahead and start out with the parliament, et cetera, okay? So biggest thing is, well, actually, you know what? Let's bump this presentation. This thing is trash. All right, so anyway, here we go. All right, so let's go ahead and get set up. Can you see me? Okay, cool. This presentation is such garbage that I can't even use it. So anyway, because it just is going to hurt my soul to do it. All right, so let's go ahead and pull this here. Let's go ahead and go. Can we just go like this? Yeah, there we go. And then I can just pull my chair over. Sweet. All right, so biggest thing is let's talk about some very, very important stuff, okay? So whenever we're communicating about England, a lot of y'all, like I said, they've had some major events happen in England recently, right? The Spanish Armada, Elizabeth refusing to get married, right? Her being called the Iron Queen, and of course she was into pirates and stuff. We won't get into that right now. But the biggest thing going into it that you know about England is that they have had a crazy history, right? And one document signed in 1215 still holds true in England, right? And that document, of course, is known as the Magna Carta, all right? So some people are like, but Mr. Terry, I thought you said that when King John signed the Magna Carta, that didn't you just immediately ignored it and tore it up? Blah, 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 blah. Look, calm down, because it's two very important things. So the Magna Carta establishes two things that are like a disease for absolutism. All right, so look like it's like a little virus, right? So he's just arr, 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 arr. he's angry eyes, right? Like he's mad. All right. So look at that little virus guy right there. He's very upset. So like the Magna Carta is a primitive form of a Ooh, whoa, hold on. Let's back that up. Tuition. All right. So they have what's known as a constitutional system, right? So a constitution, all it is a document that outlines basic rights of citizens living in a kingdom or a area or a country, and it establishes a limited monarchy, okay? So the Constitution from the Magna Carta, okay, so like also known as the Magna Carta, sets up a constitutional system in England, right? So now we've got two things fighting against each other. We've got constitutionalism versus absolutism, right? So constitutionalism versus absolutism, right? So constitutionalism is what we use today because we have our own constitution. Absolutism, on the other hand, hates constitutions because they limit the power of kings. They limit power, all right? So, but the biggest thing that it added is something that the worlds of Western civilization had never seen before. A legislative body. All right, so like a legislative body. Now, our legislature in our country is considered things like the Senate, the House of Representatives. These large groups of people that are voted in by their own citizens so that they can protect their constituency and protect the people that live underneath this Constitution that has a limited monarch, right? So the legislative body that was established in the Magna Carta, some people are like, well, it was only loosely established as the councils of nobles and clergy. Calm down. It evolved into all right, so like it evolved into a legislative body, and the thing that came out of the Magna Carta, the legislative body, is known as the Parliament. All right, so now the Parliament. Now the British Parliament, which is a bicameral organization. It is bicameral. All right, so E-R-A-L. Bicameral. Stupid glare. All right, so anyway, now, look, I'll move it over here, all right? So can I see that? So bicameral. Bicameral, what that means is it means two houses, right? So we have a bicameral legislative body here in the United States. We have the Senate and the House of Representatives. They also have a bicameral legislative body known as the Parliament, right? That was established in the Magna Carta because the Magna Carta is a constitution because that limits the power of absolutism, and that's why absolutists hate constitutionalism. See how this all flows? All right, so anyway now. But the bicameral organization that we have is the Senate and the House of Representatives in our legislative branch, right? Bicameral organization that the Parliament has are two houses. They have the House of Lords, which is the old Council of Nobles, and then when they got rid of the clergy one following the Reformation, they had the House of, and I'm going to put this in all red because it's super important, Commons. All right, so the House of Commons, right? Which is like our House of Representatives, okay? So the House of Commons. All right, so can you see that, House of Commons? What if I it's this silly little glare coming from my windows over there. Okay, maybe you're right. Maybe I do need curtains or something. But make sure you go ahead and have all this stuff, right? But, so the Parliament exists in England, okay? Parliament is great. So, really, really quick, we got to talk about what's the Tutors like? How do the Tutors and Parliament work out? So, Parliament. And if you must know, there you go. If you must know the relationship between the Tutors and the Parliament, all right? So, I'm going to give a little T and a little P. All right, so if you must know the Tutors and the Parliament, guess what their relationship's like? Hey, very friendly, all right? So Tutors and Parliament actually like each other a lot, all right? Due to the fact that Henry VIII is actually going to have to go to Parliament to make sure that they're okay with them separating from the Catholic Church and becoming the Anglican one. So they were fine with it, right? Not all of them were fine with it, of course, but as you can understand, the Tutors worked along with them. And guess who the Tutor was at the time of the Spanish Armada in 1588? That's going to be none other than your Iron Queen, Elizabeth the First. All right, so Elizabeth I is the last Tudor monarch because in 1600, hey Alexa, what year did Elizabeth I die? 1603 or 1608?
Elizabeth I of England died on March 24, 1603 at the age of
Told you. All right, so in 1603, she dies, right? So she dies, all right? Elizabeth I dies, okay? And then they're going to be replacing Elizabeth, unfortunately, because remember, she didn't have any kids, she never got married, so they had to now replace her with a close relative. And the closest relatives they have are the Scottish relatives that live north of them, known as the Stuarts, right? So Stuarts spelled with a U, not with a W, please, all right? The Stuarts, and the first Stuart monarch of England is going to be James the First. And we are going to talk about the crazy, crazy story of the Stuarts, and we're going to get into James the First rule tomorrow, right? Because something you should probably know is he absolutely hates Parliament. All right, so anyway, now, he thinks it's stupid. Now, anyway, but we're going to get into that stuff tomorrow. I hope you all enjoyed this flip, which is very, very all over the place, but you know what? It's going to be okay. Just jot the important stuff down, and you'll be fine, okay? I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great one.